So Samsung just launched the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic, but you gotta admit, it looks an awful lot like the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic, which, I don't know about you, but makes me wonder, why would you pay double the price for the Galaxy Watch 6 versus the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic? So in this video, I want to break down the differences between them and explain what Samsung changed and figure out whether or not it's worth it to actually upgrade. Yeah, and by the way, I'm actually in South Korea right now. I was at Samsung's launch event, so like this is a brand new watch. I was gonna film a day in the life, but it's actually 5 p.m. right now, so it's like an evening in the life. I don't know. I need to find some food right now, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the physical differences between these watches. So right now, both of these are charged up to 100%, but that's one thing I definitely expect to be way better on the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic than the 4 Classic, mainly because, I mean, yes, the processor's newer, but the battery is way larger. It's 435 milliamp hours on the larger version compared to 365 on the 4. But the battery is not the only thing that's larger. You see, the display in the Watch 6 Classic is also a little bit larger, about 1/10 of an inch, which sounds like not that much, but when you're looking at it, it makes a really big difference. This display feels huge on my wrist, which is nice. Like, you're able to see more when you're working out at a glance. Just using the watch in general is easier with a larger display. Now, even though the display is a lot larger, the body itself is not really that much larger. It's about 1 millimeter larger for every size. So 47 instead of 46 and 43 instead of 42. So wearing it, like, yeah, the watch is really slightly larger, but you guys can do the math. If it's a slightly larger body and a way larger display, I mean, that means that the bezel is way thinner. And when you look at it, you can see the bezel is so much thinner. And I didn't think it was bad before on the 4, but this just looks so much cleaner. In fact, you don't even notice that there is a physical bezel on there, a rotating bezel, but I mean, it's there and it works really well. Additionally, we also have better glass on the front, so it's now sapphire glass like we saw previously, which means it's way more scratch resistant. It should just be more durable in general. And probably the biggest improvement that seems really subtle at first, but I'm really glad they did that, is the way you can actually swap out the bands. So they now have like a one-click band. So on the back, you can see you just press a button, it retracts the pins, and you can take off the band, and it is reverse compatible as well. So the new bands work on the old watches, and the old watches bands, like really any 20 millimeter straps, work on this one as well. It's just a better way to make the band, and that's what it comes with on the new watch. So there's always a lot that's different when you're traveling, obviously, but one thing I really noticed and I can't figure out is why so many cars here have this little blue sponge on their doors, like a little piece of foam. Let's see if Bixby can figure this out. I don't have a lot of faith in Bixby, but we'll see what it can do. Why do so many people in South Korea have blue sponges on their car?
Please check your codes. Stops them getting damaged between the factories and dealerships. They remain on the cars until they're sold.
So it looks like it's kind of for protection on the doors, but also because people think it looks cool. Like, it makes it look new, like stickers on a hat. All right, so I've been walking around for about a half hour now. I found some food places, but honestly, it's really hot out. It's like mid-90s, so I don't know, I'm not that hungry right now. I kind of want to just go for a run, get that over with, and show you a little bit more about the tracking and the accuracy compared between these two watches. All right, so I just had to stop by the hotel real quick to get changed before I go for a run, but like, check out this view. Look at this. That's a view of Seoul from my hotel room. This is only the 15th floor. Like, this hotel goes up to 30 floors. Pretty crazy. But I'm thinking, like, there looks like a park somewhere off in the distance there. I'm going to see if I can go there and maybe find a good spot to run. And by the way, right now the watches are at 96% and 94% battery, so already we're starting to see a benefit from the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic having that bigger battery. In addition, the Watch 6 Classic is shipping with Wear OS 4, which is newer, so we have a couple benefits with that. We are getting some new apps, like WhatsApp works on there. Eventually, Google and Gmail and Audible should be working on there. We should have some pretty decent Google Assistant integration, so even though Bixby's the default, you should be able to use Google Assistant. And honestly, like, Bixby's fine, but I would, like, as you saw there, it makes you open your phone, so I would rather just use Google Assistant. And lastly, because it is newer, you are going to be getting more updates with this. Like, this is 2 years newer, so even if you plan on, like, even if you get all the updates now and it has the same software now, like, in 2 or 3 years, like, one of them is going to be way more outdated than the other. All right, so I found a good spot to run. I'm heading over there right now. It's a park, but one interesting thing. So I'm really glad both these watches have Google Maps, but in South Korea, Google Maps doesn't actually work. It's like one of the few countries in the entire world where, like, you can't use it to navigate. I gotta say, the slimmer bezel on the Watch 6 Classic definitely makes it look a little bit sportier. Like, it's still a classic looking watch, but I feel like running with this doesn't look nearly as weird as running with the Watch 4 Classic, which I always thought, like, you just look a little strange wearing a big classic watch when you run. This one, I don't think that really has the same effect. So a common problem with the Galaxy watches, and this is true with the 4 and the 6, is the GPS, like, it doesn't make you lock in GPS before you start a workout. So what I recommend doing is going to the workout selection screen like this and wait until the GPS stops blinking and it says it locked in. You're gonna have a way better, way more accurate reading then. Looks like they're both locked in. Let's get started. Got both watches tracking. So far, so good. All right, so that was a tougher run than I expected. It was really hilly and it's so hot and humid out right now. Okay, so comparing the workout details from that run, we have on the right the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic and on the left the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic. And as you can see, they both have the exact same distance, which doesn't mean they were necessarily accurate. It just means they were consistent between the two of them. And if we go back to the map, as you can see right here, for the most part, it did a pretty decent job. So we can zoom in and see, like, it wasn't always perfect. Like, I was not on this side of the road. I was over on this side of the road. Regardless, it tracked it reasonably well, and I would say that you're probably off by only a couple percent here. So overall, the GPS, I think, did a pretty decent job. But I am going to continue testing the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic, and I'll give you a more in-depth analysis in a couple weeks. All right, checking in on the battery life, we have 88% on the Watch 6 Classic and 83% on the Watch 4 Classic. It's also worth noting the step tracking is nearly identical on both of these. All right, so I'm about to go to bed and I'm going to obviously track my sleep like a total crazy person with two watches on. The battery life right now, we have 84% on the Watch 6 Classic, and the Watch 4 Classic right now has 78%. So once again, a little bit lower, but this is going to be one of the major strengths of the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic, being the sleep tracking. Now this is kind of threefold here. For one, it is going to ideally be more accurate because we do have a temperature sensor on here, which will be good for tracking your sleep, but also for female cycle tracking as well. So an added capability that we otherwise didn't have on the 4 Classic. So for females, that would be a huge positive with this. The second thing is it should be a little bit more analytical. So you should have better sleep insights. They have sleep coaching on here. And the third thing is that you should be sleeping better with this and having fewer interruptions from the bright green LEDs that you otherwise have on the Watch 4 Classic. So this, they only use infrared at night, so you won't be seeing any LEDs, and apparently it's just as accurate for tracking your sleep. Now, I'm not always big on specs, but it's worth mentioning that we have some improvements inside. We have 2 gigabytes of RAM versus 1.5 gigabytes. We have Bluetooth 5.3 versus 5.0, and most importantly, we have faster wireless charging. With the Watch 6 Classic, there is a USB Type-C charger that comes in the box, and so you should be charging it substantially quicker. If we check out the sleep tracking, once again, this is the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic, and this is the 6 Classic. The sleep tracking is supposed to be much better on the 6. You can see the overall time was a little bit longer on the 6 versus the 4. The sleep score was actually higher on the 4, despite having a shorter sleep time. And throughout the night, it had mostly the same stuff. You can see more total sleep time, the cycles, everything was pretty much a similar chart there. If we go down to this, once again, similar-ish. All right, so day 1 sleep tracking was relatively similar. It's impossible to say which one's more accurate now, just because I don't have medical equipment, but I can say anecdotally, sleeping with both of them on, I thought the 6 Classic was going to be way less comfortable. It turns out it actually wasn't. I was very comfortable with either one of these, and like, they're larger, bulkier watches, but like, I could still sleep with them. And the battery life after a night of sleep was still pretty decent. It only lost maybe about 10% battery overnight. But I would suspect if you wear this for more than about a week, you probably should see more of a difference with the Watch 6 Classic being an improvement in the overall accuracy and, of course, the insights that it's giving you. But other than that, there are a couple other differences with the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic. For one, we are getting personalized heart rate zones. So based on how you work out, based on you'll be able to have better like zone 2 tracking and things like that can help you stay in that range. And of course, you'll have coaching while you run as well. And you do actually have irregular heart rate notifications in case, a lot of times irregular heart rate stuff, people apparently don't even realize it. It's asymptomatic. So having your watch to detect that could be very helpful. All right, so you're probably watching this video for one of two reasons. Either one, you're trying to decide which one to buy, in which case, just buy the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic. You're way more future-proof, and even though the 4 Classic is half the price, there's a reason it's half the price, and that's because it won't get updates for much longer. But if you're watching this video because you have the Watch 4 and you want to know if you should upgrade, Well, I recommend checking out the link below to see what the trade-in value is. Like, last I checked, I think it was about $200, which is a really good trade-in considering that's more than you would pay to buy a new Galaxy Watch 4 Classic. So ultimately, if you can afford it, the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic has a bigger display, has a better battery life, and has a lot of improvements.